Hello everybody and welcome back. We are here once again with Uncle Jim with another how-to video. Now we've been getting a lot of questions about that beautiful concrete you've been seeing there. It looks so real. So we gotta know, how do you do that, Uncle Jim?
With business cards.
Business
Come on
cards.
over, I'll show you. Actually,
Yeah.
let me come over there. See, these are business cards that I've painted ahead of time. Ryan, take a look.
Yeah.
It's nothing but business cards
Look
that
at
I
that.
got from guys.
Let's make sure the camera can see that. Look at that business.
And notice that there's different tones on them, because if you look at roadways and stuff and the concrete, between expansion joints, it's always a different color. So the reason I use the business cards is because when I glue them onto the track, first off, I can do it here instead of being bent over the track. I end up with a different tone at the expansion strip, and that's the number one thing that makes it look realistic. Let me show you where I use it. Right here, for example. You see here? Please note that the expansion strips are the width of a card. It works out like a perfect 10 feet. Don't tell anybody, it's a little bit off, but so I glue this onto a piece of 1/4 inch MDF if I want it to be 8 inches wide for car barriers like this right here. Note that this is a full 1/4 inch, so that's 8 inches to 10 inches thick to protect people. Then when you get over here, where these walls don't need to protect for a crash, they're only but a little bit less than an eighth. So note that it fits right in there, and I'll glue them in there. Before I glue them in, I'll take a marker and I'll make this black, and make that area in the background black, and then just glue it on. And I'll extend it up this way. You know, we can extend this video and I can show you how this gets cut and that gets filled. We can do that later. But today, people were asking about the colors. So let's go over here and I'll show you how I paint these.
Let's head over to the bench. Let me get around these.
So this is the finished product. That's what we're shooting for, right? So I start by painting everything flat black. So what I do is because they blow away with the paint, you know,
Yeah.
I stick them on to a piece of tape. Note that the piece of tape is facing up,
Yes.
and it's just some way to hold it on. So I'll put these two on, and normally I'll do a whole big batch. Now, note that I collect people's business cards just for that, right?
You see the whole box of
Yeah,
them right here,
painted
Derek.
business cards. So I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to set it inside. You know what, Ryan? Give me that Lazy Susan there. It comes off, so you have to pick it up from the base.
That's my bad.
All right, so this goes in here. Normally we turn the fan on, but just for the video, it's not going to be too bad. But I get the paint ready to go. And shaker salt. That's the secret. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Okay, bear with me a minute. The Rust-Oleum 2X gives great coverage. It's almost like using my airbrush. Whoa, look what you did, Ryan. There were two of them there. Okay. So we got an extra one, right, guys?
Right, there you go. Two for
Okay,
the
so
price
now
of one.
I'm just giving it a mist. You don't have to have a paint booth for this. You can do this outside in the yard. I mean, anybody can do this. It's not
Yeah.
brain surgery.
No.
Okay, so now I got it all painted. I'm looking at it. It's all black. Now I'm going to give it a wet coat. Yeah, normally we wouldn't have that smell. And I'm going to take the salt and I'm going to shake it on there.
Salt. Who would have thought?
Now some I do a little bit, and some I do heavily. And why? It's because the effect of two poured concrete sections coming together have to be different looking. So it's a good idea to have some with a lot of the salt and some with a little. And you'll see the effect the salt gives us later on. So Ryan, if you put this underneath the fan like we talked about a video or so ago,
Yes, absolutely.
and plug it in and it'll start up.
Sounds good to me. Make sure that's nice and good there. All right. And like magic, we'll see in about a minute or two.
These guys now are dry and they got the salt on them. You see that? Can
Yeah,
you
I
feel
do
that?
see that. Yeah.
So
Here.
we're gonna stick them down here, and the reason I use this tape is so that it doesn't flutter around when I go to paint it. And we are going to paint these as randomly as we can with the two colors that I've discovered works the best for looking like cement. One is a white, but I can suggest to you never to use regular white. It looks far too bright to be realistic. So an off-white is the thing to do. And heirloom white from Rust-Oleum, I find, is the brightest I use on the track anywhere. So I'm going to shoot that in conjunction with satin fossil. And I've experimented with all kinds of colors before, and these two give me the best. You can pick them up at Home Depot and Ace Hardware for sure. I know in the States you can. So what I'm going to do is begin with the heirloom white. I forgot to mention that I use satin, but that's not important. If you use gloss, if all you can find is gloss, when we're done with this shading and adding rust streaks and things, Ryan, I shoot it with a flat coat of dull coat. It's this product right here, which I've tore the top off of, but it's a dull coat lacquer that comes from Testers. And it brings everything to life. It gets everything all evenly colored.
Very nice.
So I'm going to start on this. I'm going to spray, mist, and I'm going to mist places. I'm not going to be careful about it. And I'm going to do this. Make sure it doesn't splatter. And I'm going to have sections that end up getting more. Now that's not good. What we did right there, that spit on me because I didn't press the nozzle down, and that doesn't show right. But there's a fix for that because I can take the chalk and streak through it so nobody can see it. But in this case, a little bit of white over it cures a lot of ills. All right, let's see if we're working it. There we go.
Much better. All right.
Okay, so again, I'm going to turn it around to get some other spots, and just enough to make it a little bit different. Actually, that one is a little bit dark, and I know from feel what works and what doesn't. If I leave it dark, it looks like an old cement wall, and the more white I add to it, the newer it looks. And that guy's stippling. It's stippling a lot. You see that?
Yeah.
So I got to cover that up because that does not look realistic. Okay, so that's done.
Very nice.
So Ryan, we're going to put that underneath the fan. Yeah.
Trade these out.
Okay.
Very nice.
Let's plug that guy in.
Perfect.
When you wipe the salt off, this is the effect you get right here.
Take a look at that.
It looks like pock marks in the concrete. Now sometimes I use a finer grain of salt, and it does a little bit of a different job. And here notice that this has like a gloss to it. That was a glossy paint, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to shoot it with dull coat anyway when we're done.
Right.
So in this case we're going to get this sort of an effect. And if you have two different effects going, it adds to the realism. Now I'll take a marker. Before I put it up, I'll go over it like this, you see? And I get that little black edge. And I'll do this side too. And that's the expansion strip. Let me get this side. And this lasts a long time. If it was out in the sun, it would turn a little bit blue, but down here in the basement, it's lasted years and years. Look when I put those together. Looks like an expansion joint. See that? And what I'll do, and I'll do right on my bench just for you guys, I put a line like that on the wall before I put it in. So if I have to monkey with it and move it around a little bit, it still stays black. You see that?
Ah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
so we'll do this one too. And this one too. And that creates my expansion joint. See? And these are different by design. We want them to be different. because when they put these up and pour the concrete with that expansion strip in there, the cement is different tones. Always. You'll see that as you go down the highway. Note that I can paint them different colors too. This is white and fluorescent orange. So you recognize where that is on the racetrack?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it should be a pretty familiar sight for some of our viewers. Let's go take a look.
Let's go. I'll show you.
Yeah.
So that's how this was made, Brian.
Look at those.
Yeah. Okay, note that what's on the track is considerably darker, and it's darker because I used chalk to darken the bottom and to run the stains down. As rain sits on there, it finds a low spot, that gets dirty, and it begins to run down.
Details, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
That's quite a detail. Not a lot of people would have noticed that, I think.
Well, they see that it looks realistic,
yeah,
but they don't notice exactly what made it look so realistic.
Exactly, yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Now, instead of using the marker, I have been known to take a pile of these that I make after they're all done and dry and spray paint the edges black. And this is the effect you get, a much darker trim than what the Sharpie would give you.
Yeah, you can see that.
But again, it's not an exact science, except for having to turn that around. It's not an exact science, but it adds to the realism.
Certainly does.
Now, there's something else that I use. I found that as I go around walls that are curved, because I'll glue this to either 1/4-inch styrofoam board, if it's not where kids can break it, if it's way out in the middle track, or I'll use MDF, medium density fiberboard, 1/4-inch thick wood. What we should do is do a video showing how these are applied to an MDF wall, and then I can show you how I cap it off.
Absolutely.
But we can do that later. My point was that if the wall curves, and these guys are on the outside, the expansion joint has to reach over to the other side.
Yes.
Well, what happens is one side's longer than the other, and they don't match anymore. So I came up with this idea. Do you recognize what this is, Ryan?
Look at that. That is, for those of you who do cosplay or make your own costumes, that is foam that you'd use in that circumstance. It's costume foam.
I got this from Joann Fabrics in the States, which is a fabric store, and people who, what do you call them?
It's a cosplay or costumers foam, I suppose.
Yeah, to those fairs they go to.
Exactly.
And they use these to make armor, and they make all kinds of costumes out of them. And then they paint them. Well, what I did is I painted it a light mist of white, spread the salt on it, and then did the different tones on it. When the sheet dried, I wiped off the salt, and I got those little pepper spots in there. And this allows me to curve it. Although it is a little bit thicker, it still serves the purpose.
Right. Very innovative. Very nice.
I can show you where I use this. Are you interested to see where I use this on the track?
Take a look. Yeah.
That was right in there and in here. I needed a piece that was poured taller than a business card was, so I used this stuff.
Very nice. Wow.
It's not totally dry, but we're going to run with it. So these will be set this way, and rainwater, this will be the tops, and rainwater will run down, right?
Yes.
So we want to brush this off in this direction.
Yes.
Now normally I put a piece of newspaper or something down there to catch the salt, but for the sake of the video, we'll just go with it. So do you see the pock marks that it leaves?
Look at that. Yeah. What a cool effect.
Yeah. And it's not hard to do. It's really easy. And if you touch it, go ahead and touch that. It feels like real cement. I mean, you get a little bit of a grit to it,
It gets a texture. That's really interesting.
And note that some have more than others, which is what I was shooting for.
Right. That's awesome. Went from business card to concrete. Look at that.
A friend in Great Britain showed me a method of taking marmalade. He called it marmalade. I think it's our jelly.
Right.
And you can take the black and smear some marmalade on it in a way as if a car had scraped the wall.
Huh.
And then you paint it your color. He just used gray. And then you take a damp cloth and wipe off the area of the marmalade, and it comes off and it leaves a black streak.
Really?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of tricks. It takes so many years. You know, I never thought I'd have to get a chance to show anybody my methods, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're putting this on video.
Well, we're glad to share, with everybody who wants to do this sort of stuff themselves.
Yeah.
How these little tips and tricks that you learned over, 35, 40 years, right?
And it's not hard to do. Now I'll take these guys, and I'll either, if I had like 50 to 100, I'll put them in one pack like this.
Yeah.
And I'll put a business card on both sides so they don't get painted. Put it into the vise, and then I'll spray paint it the edges black.
Right.
Or if I, if I get lazy, let's use the Sharpie.
You just use the Sharpie, right?
So we're set here for another maybe 10 or 15 for my next job.
That's pretty awesome. That's real cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take the time, Derek, to get a piece of MDF and make a wall. And I can show you how I cap it off and make the expansion strip over the top.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We could do that now. We could save it for another video. That's up to you.
No, we can do that another time because I got to glue these on.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
They have to be glued on. In fact, I'll probably glue half on ahead of time, eh?
Yeah, sounds good.
So we'll see.
We'll keep them coming back. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Now, I did have one question. So you got some floor pieces there, and I've touched them, and they got some texture to them. So what do you use for that?
That's you know what? I forgot to show that to you. There's paint samples at the hardware store that has a grit to them, and I really don't know what it's for. So I use the same method that I use on business cards.
Yes.
On these paint samples.
Look at that. Yeah.
Ralph Lauren.
These are
Ralph Lauren is the product now.
Ralph Lauren paint. Look at that.
Mind you, I saw these and I thought, oh boy. So every time I went to the store, I'd pick up 2 or 3, and they end up with a texture to them.
Yeah.
So they look like floor. And in this case, this is used for a wall. And you'll notice I added a crack with a lead pencil. And then with graphite, I streaked it down. Because what happens, rainwater comes down, hits the crack, travels down the crack, and creates another streak. So that makes it look more realistic. Now, I could burnish this and make a mess of it. But by using the dull coat, 1 coat of dull coat on these, you can see a sheen on these, can't you?
Yeah, take a look.
This will take that sheen right away and look as realistic as can be.
That is awesome. That's really
It's
cool.
by Testors. Testors Dull Coat.
Testors Dull Coat. All right, very nice.
But that was a good question.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got to see this process. This has been one of those, really common questions that we keep getting about the track.
Hopefully it answers some questions.
We definitely, painting that concrete, we definitely got that covered. I think we'll have to come back. We'll have to come back and see how you apply it to the wall.
We'll take these and make a wall, right?
Yeah, sounds great to me.
Good.
All right. Well, once again, folks, thank you for joining us. I hope that you'll join us for another episode. And, like and subscribe if you like this content as usual. And signing off. See you later.